So, by the way, one little joke on your book. So, I was discussing within my team, and one of my marketing persons said, Vishal, you know what? How can I make this book better to resonate with Fortune 1000 companies? I said, how? He said, just lose the L in learn. So it just reads fail fast, earn faster. So I said that's brilliant.
No, that's right. Yes.
So anyways, thank you for walking us through that. So now, I think let's talk about maturity of it. I think when I was reading this book, I think what stands out is your urge to helping basically tell business you have to be data driven, you have to understand your data, you have to understand your silos. So from that aspect, over last 20 years or how many years you have been helping assisting these businesses, how have you seen the understanding of maturity evolve for these organizational leaders? Like, can you walk us through that?
Yeah, I say a few things, and that is that maybe this speaks to recommendations for success. I think that organizations, from my experience, have to be very focused on business value. Often there's an inclination to create technology. I won't say for the sake of creating technology, but sometimes it's building the perfect platform that's going to serve an organization for a long period of time. But the problem is that business executives get measured in quarters, okay? So there is no long period of time if you don't achieve success from quarter to quarter. So it's very common for me to go into organizations and meet with their data teams, and they tell me all about the robust capabilities they've created, and they're justifiably proud of those capabilities. Then I'll meet with the technology organization, and they'll share with me the architecture and platform and engineering. And it's very robust, and they're very proud of what they've created, and they talk about how it provides a long-term platform for the future. And then I go and meet with the line of business executives, the presidents of the line of business who have ultimate responsibility. And they say the truth of the matter is that we don't have confidence in our data. We don't trust the data that we're receiving. We're not always receiving the data that we need to make the decisions that we make. We're not receiving the data that we need with the timeliness that we need to make these decisions, particularly in a digital world. So what we see is this gap between the business decision makers that have to yield these quarter-to-quarter results and teams that are creating capabilities that may well serve the organization for the long term, but there's this gap between translating that into business value in the short term. So one of the things that we continually advise organizations to do is begin by identifying one simple business question that you're not able to answer today, and identify what is the data that you need to answer that question. You don't need all of the data. You don't need a full universe of data. You might just need a handful of information or vectors to be able to make that determination. So provide that data, allow the business person to answer that question, and that establishes an initial level of trust and credibility. And then working with the business owner or executive, identify a second key business question that's unsolved. And then again, repeat that process. By repeating that process, it builds trust, it builds credibility. And when you repeat it multiple times, then it builds momentum. So we see successful organizations as having established that credibility, trust, and momentum, but it really happens one step at a time, and it really starts small. Somebody said, well, how does that correlate with your title, Fail Fast, Learn Faster? And I said, I didn't say anything about starting small. You have to start somewhere to get big, regardless of, Amazon, Jeff Bezos started in like a tiny office, 25 odd years ago. So, so sometimes you just need to start small to build that credibility and trust, and then you can create that momentum that creates the escape velocity, to quote Jeffrey Moore again.
So I think that's a fair point. So if I'm a leader, listening to this conversation, what advice would you give? And I'm not a data scientist. I'm probably the dreamer. I'm the guy who's making life harder for a data scientist to live in this organization. So how would you, because I think if you talk to the data side of the world, right, um, they all complained about trust, right? They all complained about how much the other business units are either not sharing data or not collaborating effectively, or they don't see our value fast enough so they can collaborate with us better. And it's a constant back and forth between the business units and these data offices. So what would you tell to the leaders, like how would they make that cultural shift that is needed, that what your book demands basically from these organizations?
Yeah, I think both sides need to put themselves in the other side's shoes fundamentally. So business leaders, they can't and they shouldn't back off the need to drive short-term answers to key business questions, but they should also take the time to understand the reasons why data teams and technology teams build platforms for the long term, how they'll be better served ultimately. The data and technology organizations need to really appreciate the fundamental short term quarterly nature of business and business profits, and they might not like it, but it's the reality. And if your organization is not able to demonstrate those short-term results, as mentioned before, there isn't a long-term. It's funny because it hasn't happened this time around, but back in when the financial crisis came in 2008, 2009, and the major financial services companies had to lay off hundreds of thousands of people, I often saw the data scientists among the first to go, or what was then the equivalent of the data scientists, because they weren't contributing something in many instances that had immediate value today in that moment. It was just people that were providing some piece of work that had immediate value to basically keep the company in business and keep the doors open tomorrow. So fortunately, we haven't been in that situation over the past close to 15 years now since then. But yeah, when push comes to shove and you get into really difficult situations, unless you can explain why you're adding value to today, you might not have a role. We're in a fortunate and luxurious situation now. The data profession is rich and robust and booming, but times change and we don't always have that luxury.
Yeah.